The Sounds of ECLA deep dives into the business worlds of our members and partners.
What is the growth direction of your business? Where's the areas you want to focus on?
We learn about the challenges you've never heard of.
Sometimes work is going to need more of your time. And if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to do that.
The skills and habits that are the backbone of their businesses.
Life comes in seasons, just like the year comes in seasons. Some seasons will be really tough.
And the feedback and advice that set them up for success.
Being able to separate yourself from feedback and know that it's not personal and take it constructively, then you can only ever better the product that you've built.
This is The Sounds of ECLA. Welcome to The Sounds of ECLA. It's Maxi here, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Loz.
Hey Maxi, how are you? I'm excited about today's guest.
So am I. He's someone who's been with us for over 3 years, right from the start of ECLA. Look, there's a bit about him because he's lived in a lot of different countries. He's worked in a lot of different countries. You'll tell by his accent where he's from. He calls Australia home now, but in his heart, he's still a Pommy. And the thing about it is we're coming off a summer where the Ashes weren't too kind to him and his people. So I don't know if he wants to talk about it too much, but we certainly had some passionate debates about it. A huge welcome to the CEO and founder of Networks X, Toby Raper. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Loz. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. 20 seconds it took you to bring up the cricket.
Well, I had to make sure I had something in here so that we could relax a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, well done. Well done. Yeah.
Mate, tell us about the business.
Yeah, so Networks X, founded, God blimey, nearly 4 years ago now. We're effectively a matchmaker for knowledge. So clients are institutions, so private equity firms, hedge funds, consulting firms. They come to us when they're looking to get smart on a specific topic, a potential deal, or if they're looking to expand into a new market. And we take the opinion that there's too much advice out there, and so we're all about access. So they'll have a list of questions. We take those questions and try and identify the best experts to educate them across those questions.
Yep.
And they're not always the same expert. And then provide a compliance framework and a process that allows them to have an exchange. So tech-enabled service effectively, headquartered here in Melbourne, offices in the US and soon to be other places as well.
Well, I sort of, when people just ask you what you do, I describe it as you're the FBI for VCs. So a little bit of you go and find out all the details, the nitty gritty, and basically have experts all around the world in every different subject matter. And if you don't have them, you'll go and find them. So people really rely on you to go and do the heavy lifting. Yeah,
it's absolutely. And look, our clients don't use us for vocational knowledge. They're really smart people. Really, it's situational.
Yep.
And the viewpoint is there are businesses that have sort of long lists of a network of experts, but our viewpoint is every situation changes, right? So someone who looked at AI 6 months ago, their line of questioning is completely different. So the perfect expert for them doesn't exist on some database. It's out there in the real world. So our viewpoint is we have to go out and custom source is what we say pretty much every time. So.
Yep.
Tobes, we've been privileged to see your business grow over the last few years. What's a problem that's come up in your business that you thought was going to be easy, but in fact has taken longer or been more difficult to navigate through?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I've had experience leading businesses, and so creating a go-to-market strategy, hiring people, knowing the right people to hire, building culture, like that bit sort of, I wouldn't say second nature, but I had some experience with.
Yeah.
I think what people don't tell you when you set up a business is firstly, cash flow.
Yeah.
Which is something that is really quite, you think that you're going to send out an invoice and it's just, you're working for these large institutions, it's just going to come through. And it's never a simple process. So if there's anybody who wants to come up with a new startup, any way they can improve cash flow for small businesses,
let us know.
All ears, let me know. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the issues. And it's not around our clients not paying us. It's just, there'll be a small issue around an address or, there's just a very manual process around it. So I think you try and create these three-way cash flow models and P&L prediction sheets, and it never goes to plan. So I think that was the first thing, and especially when you're when you first start and you get your first client, you're like, okay, great, I'm going to hire more people, and then you may think that cash is going to come in 30 days. It's more like 50, and then you're scratching around for every cent and penny and being annoying and chasing people. So that was number one. I think number two would be just as you scale. I think as a founder, I've worked at large corporates. And so then you go into be a founder and you're all in every day and you get so addicted to being busy all the time. And so You know, in those early days, you're working, let's be honest, 5 a.m. till 3 in the morning, if I'm honest, with gaps in between to you do your family stuff, etc. And then when things start to hum and they start to go, it's getting comfortable with what I found really hard was getting comfortable with not being busy all the time and giving myself time to think and utilizing that time. So I think early on when we started to really hum and we went from one person to now nearly 20, I was like, I started to get really anxious about, I'm not busy. I've got to find something rather than actually be comfortable with that and take some time to think and be strategic and just, understand that you're not paid to be busy all the time. You're paid to, when an opportunity comes along, being fully 100% switched on and ready for it and think strategically about your business. So I'd say those two things have been the biggest shock.
Yeah.
So definitely, taking a breath has been a skill or a habit that you've had to, I guess, learn really. What are some of the other skills, habits you've learned over such a long time working that you use today that have sort of become second nature?
Yeah, I think the ability to put yourself in one's shoes. One of the things is when you first start your career, you're very individualistic. You're like, well, what do I need to be successful? And you look at yourself and you want feedback all the time. And I think once you sort of go past that inflection point of you look at your own productivity as success, and then you realize that if you can influence others, so it's amplify your impact through influencing other people. So if you get to the point where you know that if I could spend 10% of my time with this person, 10% of my time with that person, the exponential impact on your business is so large because you're actually making them 10%, 20% more effective. That's a great concept. It's a great theory. But to do it in practice, you have to understand what makes that person tick. And what makes you tick as an individual is different. So you try and create this sort of environment that you think, oh, that worked for me, so it'll work for everybody else. But really, you've got to look at all the different characters you've got. And it's really interesting is I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, everyone needs to be treated as equals. Everyone needs to be treated the same. And it was, and actually, it's not that case at all. Everybody needs to be treated different because their scenario is different and what makes them tick is different, And I use the example because it's a simple example for people to understand is you can't treat, someone who has had 10 years experience, maybe has a young family, the same way as you treat someone who's 23, looking for their first career move. The expectations are different. Their environments are different. The flexibility you need to give them is different. It might be the same. I'm not saying it's always different, but it's most likely to be different. And I think that ability to compartmentalize those different relationships with people's individual situations, that's been a really, really important skill. I think the other one really is to understand the idea. And I love, there's a video I watched recently of Roger Federer talking about his success. And it's a well-known video. It was him at a university, and Roger only won 54% of the points he ever played, and he's arguably one of the, if not the most successful tennis player in history. I'm not a big fan of tennis, but I like what he was saying, and the idea of if something doesn't go right, there's tomorrow, and if you lose a client, there's another client coming. If someone leaves your business, you celebrate the fact that they were there and shake their hand and wish them best on their next journey. So I think that ability to sort of reset and be resilient is so critical.
So from that leadership perspective, because you're very much you're people orientated and you want to build those relationships, how hard is that to do when you've got offices around the world?
Yeah, pretty difficult. I think early on you've got to just understand this concept of. I think that direct interaction is really, really important. So early on, you've got to understand that I've got my head of North America who looks after North America now, so it's easier. And I'll talk about that in a second. But early on, I'm available at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning. If I'm expanding into a new region, I'll flex my days to be available earlier in the morning. It doesn't mean that I don't get sleep. I just go to sleep earlier and get up earlier. I think that's really key is that human connection. Letting them know you're there. I think it's also about when you're setting up internationally is do the hard stuff for them. So one of the things we have to do is pay experts all over the world. It's a pretty mundane job. I'll do that. I don't want them worrying about administration and the boring parts of the job. I wouldn't get excited. You take the credit, you go meet the clients, you sign the contracts, you train the team. I'll do the stuff that's underneath you. So I think great leadership is lifting people up from underneath, not necessarily dragging them up from or pulling them up.
Yep.
It's sort of pushing them up.
Is there culturally different things you've noticed? So I was lucky enough to work with Melbourne Storm and having people not just from Australia. It was actually all the Polynesian and the New Zealanders and all those so many different backgrounds, and they all had their own little intricacies. So it was very different, even the way that they took feedback or understood what they were doing, or the way that they played or what was important to them. Have you found that, having worked in so many different countries as well?
Oh, 100%. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made in leadership, was very lucky enough to be given a leadership opportunity by a previous employer to head to Hong Kong. I'd never been to Asia.
Yep.
And I was 25, and they wanted me to sort of take a team of 3 and grow it. And I went in there like a bull in a china shop, tried to make things happen in a Western way. And I think with it, that was the first probably point where I thought, be introspective, look at what you're doing and criticize what you're doing. And I realized that leadership style does not work in Hong Kong or China, and it doesn't really work here in Australia either. And there's a massive difference between our US team and our Australian team culturally. One of the things is, with the US, they want you to see the fact that I'm making an effort over there.
Yep.
While here, they will just get on with their job, and as long as you're making a good environment for them, they'll do what you need. But in the US, for example, I know when I hired a new employee, I flew to LA for 3 days, 15-hour flight, had to show face, go there, shake the new employees' hands, be there to train them to get excited about the new business, and jump on a flight 3 days later. There's no catching up for jet lag. It's just get it done. So I think as you scale internationally, you have to understand, like, okay, well, what does it make these people tick and what's important over there? And even some of the more like niche elements. So for example, now looking at hiring some people in Colombia, that's a whole different ballgame. But even some of the slippery slopes from an HR perspective, you have to pay a 13-month salary in bonus to people in Colombia. That's not things you think about, right? So absolutely they think differently. And I think the best way to solve that problem is to go in with a coachable mindset, and don't be scared to sit down with a junior employee if you're I don't know, taking over a new region, and ask them questions, be inquisitive.
Yep.
And in an environment where they're comfortable. Like, for example, in Hong Kong and China, you can't get everybody in a room and say, we're not doing well enough. These are all the things we need to do better. You cannot publicly shame anybody. You've got to do it individually and in a very different way. While in Australia, if you pull people in a room and have a frank conversation, they'd be okay with it.
If you're looking for somewhere to hold your next professional offsite, a place with brilliant service, all the amenities you need, and a stunning location, look no further than Eclair. Find out more at eclair.com. Tobes, we've all come from sporting backgrounds, and I know you love your sport. And the sports industry is good at giving direct feedback, and it's sort of how you're constantly improving, and you get it every day. Is there any bit of feedback that you've received over your journey that's probably stung or hurt, but it's actually shaped either you individually or your business?
When I was younger, I was I still am quite loud. I'm a bit deaf in one ear, so I'm always shouting. But I think I got some pretty brutal feedback around being, a little bit emotional. So I wear my heart on my sleeve. When things go well, I'm the first one to celebrate with other people. I'll celebrate other people's success. I love team environments. I love winning as a team. That's why I hate individual sports. There's nothing better as achieving something as a group. But yeah, those ups are great. But that also meant that when things didn't go so well, I was also equally as expressive. Yeah. And I think what I learned was, so early on I got the feedback, you're too expressive. You need to dial it down because other people around you in the office are getting a little bit, I was like, fair enough. But what I did was I thought I had to sort of almost neutralize myself and minimalize myself and not be myself. So I started to apologize for being myself. And I think one of the things I realized and how I adopted it properly over time was I can still have the ups. And when I'm starting to have those downs, it's about having triggers in my mind to acknowledge when I'm having those downs, to then just go out and do some self-care and go for a walk or go to the gym or remove myself from the office and go work in a meeting room if I need to. So I think that was pretty brutal feedback because I'm a pretty energetic person, and I always thought my expressiveness was just going to be great and just going to make people want to feed off my energy. But when you're like that, people feed off the positive, they equally feed off the negative.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the bit of feedback that I realized as a business owner. I still struggle with it today. I don't get it right all the time, but I think it's just acknowledging that, you know, your attitude is contagious. Is it worth catching? Is the thing that I try and think about. Yeah.
You play a lot of sport, so there's obviously feedback, as Loz said, from a sporting perspective. Greensboro hockey, you got a lot of different age groups there, and although it is fun to play on weekends, it's serious because it's a high level of hockey and you want to be successful. Reigning premiers, I think, even from last year. Even that, how do you deal with giving feedback from a sport perspective, but then also it's very different in business because you don't have HR in sport.
No, you don't. Absolutely. I've always said that I've learned more on the sports field in terms of leadership and working as a team than I learned in the classroom. I use more today running a business from the cricket field or the hockey field than I did from university, for example. It's really interesting. So in sport, you can give pretty blunt feedback, and you can tell someone, you can turn around and point them and tell them they're not good enough. And I know that Channel 7's got a really good AFL show with GWS at the moment, and just looking at some of that, you're like, if I did that in the office, I would be frog march into HR. But I think sport's having to adapt as well, right? So the new generation coming into the high level of sport now, you know, we've got some 16 to 18-year-olds that are phenomenal hockey players. You can't communicate with them the same way you communicated with me at 16, 18. I can still remember being given a dressing down in a cricket change room, and we started to count the swear words, right? From a guy called Ian Thorpe, who's Graham Thorpe's brother. Graham played 100 test matches for England, and now, you know, people would just switch off on you. They just turn off. So I think you can still have an impact without being too direct. So, you know, you can sandwich your feedback with positive, negative, positive. I'll leave it as that. But you can also let things go sometimes, I think, in a business. While, you know, high performance is an elite performance, and elite performance is a very different level. So I think if you're playing elite performance sport, you've got to be prepared to be dressed down. You're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, you know, it's your job. Like, deal with it. I think you can still be high performing in the workplace, but high performance comes with a much sort of softer level of coachability. So I think it's more about maximizing people's strengths rather than always commenting on their weaknesses. And so while sport, you need to look at your weaknesses all the time and improve those, because opposition players will look to take your weaknesses and use them against you. You don't really have that in the work environment. So, and we always seem to put so much effort into talking about people's weaknesses, but in the work environment, because you don't have that risk, always try and think about coaching people on their strengths. And then if you focus on their strengths, they'll be willing to listen to some comments on the weaknesses, but that should be 20%. The other should be 80%. And I think that's probably the difference.
What about in your business with having consultants and having people overseas where A, you've got to find them, but then B, you probably don't have as much time to build relationships with them. Have you had to give any feedback to them that they're not delivering at the level that your expectations are from your business perspective? Have you had any of them that haven't quite hit the mark that you've required and had feedback from your clients that the experts you've delivered haven't given us what we need?
Yeah, look, it's something you don't want to happen.
Yep.
And thankfully, we've built sort of a pre-qualification process that they happen very rarely. It's sort of probably 1 in every 100.
Yep.
But yeah, we absolutely get feedback from our clients when things haven't hit the mark. At the end of the day, when we're talking to our experts, they're professionals.
Yep.
We've trained our team to not only pre-qualify them based on their knowledge, but also pre-qualify them based on their sort of professionalism and conduct.
Yep.
And we'll make the choice if we feel someone isn't up to the scratch, both from a knowledge perspective, but also if they start talking about their opinions on people. Our clients don't pay us for opinions. They literally don't care about opinions.
Yeah.
They pay us for factual insight, right? So we'll pick apart that. And we'll typically choose not to give too much feedback to our experts unless they ask.
Yep.
And because they have given up their time, And sometimes there's a mismatch on knowledge because our clients don't always know exactly what they're looking for. And so it's not always the expert's fault. And because we're not involved in that consultation, right? So we don't listen in, like we create the engagement. We don't have any access to what's discussed.
Yep.
We tend to try not to take too many opinions on what the feedback is. Now we'll listen to our client feedback and we'll change our process, or we'll try and find a slightly different expert. But yeah, we typically don't do that, no.
What is it that drives you now, and how's that changed?
When I was working for someone else, what drove me is winning. Like I just love to win. Like we used to have a global table of the best performers in the organization, and they were sort of like, it was a 500-person firm, and if I wasn't in the top 10, I was losing, right? And a couple of times I finished first. I wanted to see my name up there.
Yep.
Now, I mean, I think that particular firm would probably look at that process now and it's probably not HR savvy these days, and they'd probably take it down. But for me, that got me going, right? So love to win. I love to read about the deals that I was working on in the Financial Times, because this would be in London.
Yeah.
And that used to, everybody else on the train is reading about something that I knew about 6 months ago. You know, it boosted my ego. But I think as you become older and as you become a father, so often you've had to put your ego to one side, that you become less, you realize that ego is a short-term hit. It's not a actual long-term happiness. So I think what excites me now and what motivates me now is really focused around watching other people succeed. So I love to sit back. I love to see other people really flourish. And it's a little bit through my coaching, but it's also for other people coaching.
Yep.
So I love to see that. I get to choose the people I work with, along with my other leaders. And I love hiring someone, seeing that reaction, but more importantly, seeing that reaction when it triggers in their mind when they've started working for us, and that person's going to be successful in this job. Yep. And if they're going to be successful in this job, because it's not an easy job, they're going to have a long-term success in their future.
Yep. So
I get quite excited about setting that 22-year-old, 23-year-old on their life's journey. I think what motivates me now as an individual is time. So time is the most valuable resource, and buying back time. So I put so much time into my career, even when at my last job, when I was running APAC, I was time away from the family, time away from friends. I'd miss things for work. Even, when I first started this business 2 years ago, missed things for work. Now it's that time of, I'm going to read a story to the kids at bedtime and not feel guilty for it. And I'm not going to rush it because I need to get back to work. I'm going to sit there, enjoy, and be present in the moment. And also to buy time back in the next 4 or 5 years. I'd love to, not have to work full time and, see this business flourish, and I don't know, play golf on a Monday afternoon because I can play golf on a Monday afternoon. So I think I've realized the value of time. Even yesterday, I was able to take the afternoon off and go out for lunch with my wife on her birthday. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's probably what really motivates me now, is finding more time.
A big thanks to the production team at This Is a Studio for producing this episode. They handle everything: the equipment, the technical expertise, and the editing, delivering you a complete, ready-to-upload episode in both audio and video. All you have to do is talk. Whether you're launching a podcast or leveling up your current one, they make it incredibly easy. If you need any support, have a chat to the team here at eClar or reach out to This Is a Studio.
You've got a young family.
Yeah.
How do you get that, in quotes, work-life balance today?
Yeah, I hate the word work-life balance.
Yeah.
It really annoys me because what it's implying is that it's always perfect.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a blend, right? I think what you have to understand is, especially as a business owner, whether you're a mum, dad, young person, or whatever, is that sometimes work is going to need more of your time. And if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to do that. And then sometimes you have more time for life. Now I have non-negotiables. So I have non-negotiables around weekends. So I will typically not touch, I'll read my emails and reply to anything, but I will not touch my laptop over the weekend. I've got kids sport on a Saturday morning, my own sport on the Saturday afternoon, kids sport on a Sunday morning, family time on the Sunday afternoon, and I'll cook for the family on the Sunday. So for me, it's about those non-negotiables are key. And they have to work around your family as well. They can't just work around you. The other thing is just having if you are in a relationship or you're married, is having a very, very patient partner, but also communicating really well with that partner. Like, how much do you have today? Like, my wife is very career orientated as well. And we're about to welcome our third child, probably got about a month to go. I think, 34 weeks this week.
Oh, wow.
She's very tired. So at the moment, I know that has to take a little bit of priority right now. And if I do that now, it means that I'll get a decent paternity leave where I can actually switch off for 3 or 4 weeks and be present. So I think what's key is good communication with the people on the life side, and then being patient and understanding what they've got themselves into as well. And the other thing is that understanding that it's not a balance, it's a blend, and then having your non-negotiables.
I like that.
What are some of the things that you just would love to change, that just frustrate the hell out of you? You're just like, if I had a magic wand today in work, what would I change?
Oh, bureaucracy. I think
In Australia in particular, or just all over the place?
I hate to say it, yeah. I think Australia has a productivity issue, and you can deny as much as you like. The numbers are there, the facts are there. We have a productivity issue, and that comes down to some macro things that you can't deal with, and they're going to take a long time to change, right? But I think one of the key things is doing business. Doing business is hard, and I think doing business in Victoria is hard. And I think the government could do way more to make it easier, right? For example, if I hire, I think 2 or 3 more people in Victoria, the tax I have to pay to the government shoots up to another level. So as a business owner, am I going to create more jobs in Victoria when I'm trying to create a profitable business, or am I going to go internationally or interstate? It's a decision that I don't want to make. I'd love to have everybody in the office, but if I look at the pure financials, it doesn't always make sense, right? There's a lot of bureaucracy, and for a country that actually punches way above its weight in business. I mean, you saw the news about eucalyptus being bought out by an American firm for $1.6 billion. That's fantastic for the startup and VC ecosystem here. Punches above its weight, could be doing way more. And I think you look at what places like Dubai are doing, and I'm not saying that Australia is a country that needs to go that far. I don't think it would work. But there are other countries doing way more to make businesses succeed more easily. And it's not about being easy, but it's about being accessible. I think that's a big one for me, and I think it could be doing more in that way for sure.
Can we get you into politics at some stage? Or?
No.
No.
It's funny. My little brother always said that you'd be a really good politician because I always sit on the fence. But no. I think they've got a very difficult job, and I don't know if I'd like my life to be in the limelight like that. So.
Mate, we could talk to you all day. We really appreciate you giving up your time. Anyone who's out there who's looking for the expertise, where do they find you?
Yeah, sure. So LinkedIn, networksx.co is the website. We've got anywhere to get in touch there, or just, reach out to me on LinkedIn via Messenger or whatever. But website's networksx.co, and we'd love to hear from people.
Thanks, Tobes.
You're a great person. We really appreciate your help and all your support of eClar and the eClar community. You're a huge part of it. Thanks to you, Loz. This has been the Sounds of eClar. Big thank you as always to This Is a Studio for all their work in the production of this, and we see you next time. Cheers.